Right, the last point of the show, and I have actually, even though we've done a lot of big, like, abstract formats up, this is just going to be a team-based one. And I've had to put it in ugly specifically, because actually, you know what, even though I meme, I don't actually think this team is bad. I'm just going to put as ugly Eternal Fire. Because holy fuck, these guys, it's funny, because at the exact same time Mouse got shit and these guys had their run, then Mouse got really bad for that month and a half, and Eternal Fire like swapped parts with them and became like a fucking top tier. And then they reversed, and now Mouse is back again, and Eternal Fire's shit again. Because, bro, when they had those 2 finals in a row, where they made the Bet Boom final, that was the one where at that event they had to beat Mouse on land to get there. Then they made it at the EPL one, where they beat like Vitality on fucking land. And then, by the way, I'll tell you right now, they almost got Na'Vi in that final. They were so fucking close. You could even argue they were like closer to winning that final in some of the maps than Na'Vi was. Like, they had Na'Vi right on the ropes, almost beat them. So you look at that point in time, look at some of the scalps you've beaten. Guys, nobody beats people like Mouse and fucking Vitality on LAN if they're like a lesser team. Those are names that are out of the stratosphere. The idea you could, by the way, almost win a best of 5 against Na'Vi is insane. So, one, their form was insane right before this point where they just slammed into the ground and they can't even now make like playoffs of a fucking ESL Challenger event. Like, and they're just bombing the RMR. And even worse, they're bombing the RMR against nobodies. They're not even getting the really insane draw where they play on the top tier. The reason why this is insane to me is there are so many analytical factors I can give you as to why this team should be good. Like, one, not only was their form excellent, and by the way, this team I think is one of the best examples of a team that shows how you play CS2. They play that like more up-tempo, like smash mouth T-side. It works. That works against the best teams. Secondly, I used to make fun of them because all they used to have was that Vertigo. Now they have Vertigo and Anubis, guys. That means they can always have an angle in a veto where they can get something and have some upset potential. Very few teams in the world good at both those maps. Then we'll just throw out there, they've got a player I think is completely overqualified to be in their team, XANTARES. XANTARES is like a leash. This guy, in theory, should be able to walk into almost any top 10 team right now and go, can I have that spot? And it would be an upgrade. This guy's a fucking amazing. And then lastly, I mean, I've sort of said it there, but like, I think the style of play actually is quite conducive to how you play CS2. Like, I think it should work. So to me, it's almost a mystery that they're this bad, actually. I'd love to meme on them more, but like, I actually think they should be way better than this. Like, I was very, very underwhelmed with this failure at this qualifier. Like, look, I do think they maybe were slightly performing when they made the finals, etc., and almost beat Na'Vi. But it showed to me, like, you know, what they were capable of. And as I say, I don't think there's many bad teams that could do any of the shit they just did before. So they can't inherently be a bad team for me. So what do you guys think, Eternal Fire?
Oh, I think that it's another example of, I think it's possible but I think it's possible when you have that rifler who's so impactful and has so much multi-kill in him, so much ADR, that he can elevate nearly any team. I think if you take like, I rate XANTARES as being, and there's like so many of these people in sports who are like, I don't know, it's the best player to never win a major, right, in golf or whatever it may be.
Right.
I think that XANTARES is that guy. I think he's outrageously good. I've always loved him as a player, and I think that it's so impressive how he was able to elevate that team. I think if you take him out of the team, that they become non-competitive almost immediately. I've always wanted to sign him at teams. I think he's amazing. But and it's one of those things. It's just that he's had such an unfortunate, I think, run of his career. But I think that I always think that they're just punching above their weight. And even the last kind of 6 months or so, XANTARES has been amazing. And it's just kind of, he needs a bit more assistance from his teammates. But I think the addition that they finally got Wikidia, who like another FPL superstar, that was enough then to kind of give them that extra bit. But he's always just been, I've always seen him as been one of the most undervalued players in CS,
right,
without question. I think that's been disappointing for them for sure. I think to Maui's point, I think that you would want them at the major. I think they can be like a bogey team for, like they're not really a contender to win it, obviously, but they're someone who you don't like playing against them. Nobody likes playing against XANTARES. It's, you know, it can be, especially on that vertical ramp, he can be a nightmare. He's walking up there.
Well, for Eternal Fire, I mean, for them to not make it just feels like a shame because they had a really sick year. And the storyline for them that actually concerns me the most is how much is this going to actually hurt XANTARES' top 20 positioning. Right. I always just kind of think of like, okay, summing up their year, what's that gonna be? Because I had them in the top 10 of my players and now without even playing the second major of the year, another chance to rack up some numbers. Like the thing is, he hasn't played a lot of big events, like, or the number of maps he's played at these isn't very high. And I feel like it's gonna be one of those cases where people see the ranking and they're just gonna unfortunately conflate his team success or lack thereof with his own individual ability. Because for my money, top 8 safely. I'd say top 8 safely players at CS2, but I feel like there's a good chance that HLTV might exclude him from the top 10. So that's where I feel like we need to actually always be here to just describe, or like to make sure that there is some sort of formal record of how good we perceive these players to be, because when it's etched in internet stone in the HLTV top 20 and people see him outside that, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, no, he had a good year, but it wasn't really fantastic. It's like, but that's not actually his fault. It's actually not his fault at all. Like, sure, he could have played better in the Astralis series that got him eliminated, but he's one of the best 8 players, period. And if I said Rifler's top 5, like, he's a top 5 Rifler in CS2. I think that sounds more impressive. And for him to be out of it, it's just like, what are we doing here? You know, like when we have all these records and everything like that, are we really gonna say because Eternal Fire didn't live up to his expectations or his standard that we're now punishing him for that? That's where we need to just make sure we exercise a bit more judgment on these kinds of lists.
No, by the way, I think the point you make there is a very valid one, which is it's a bit like the Ballon d'Or in football. The problem is your team also has to do very well, otherwise you just don't get to win it. So, like, if a fan looked back in history and they're like, wow, this guy was better than this guy, not necessarily. Like, sometimes you're like splitting hairs when you come to like who's in the top 3 or whatever. What are you going to say, Ross?
Yeah, and that's the thing, is where do you find the sweet spot? And this is always the age-old argument. It's like between winning trophies and individual achievements, and what's the nice balance that's acceptable. But I think that if you were to look at where XANTARES' teammates would be without him in that team, or where they were prior to them playing with him again, I think it's clear. It's the same thing when I won French CS. It's like he revitalized the whole scene, and he extended players' careers, and he gave them trophy moments. That's the definition of greatness, is being able to elevate those around you to a status that they wouldn't otherwise be able to achieve. And he's one of the best examples of that ever in CS, I think, XANTARES. And he's just been on the periphery of everything. And I think if he doesn't get the accolades that he deserves, it's never a title that people want in sport, to be the best player to never. Yes,
he's on some like Harry Kane shit or something. Anyway, it's like it's great that you're brilliant, but you'd rather have the trophy, obviously. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, for sure.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or be a pleb and don't.